Motivation tends to wane and be fickle for most people and not as consistent as we would all like. So obviously we're going to have setbacks and we're going to not do as well as we'd like to as we when we set out for things. So it's just kind of a write up about staying focused and trying to lower the barrier to stay consistent with our habits. Um, Looking at our setbacks with a bit of a different perspective in the sense that like we're all kind of learning this as we go, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and I kind of talked about that and touched on it this week. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the habit reminder little write up that I did. Um, so last week was supposed to be calories in, calories out. Most of the people that I've on this call for sure, and then the people that aren't on this call but are following from the shadow. I've spoken to most of you about kind of setting up your MyFitnessPals and uh, making sure that the macros and calories are set mostly to how most aligned with most of your goals to make sure they're happening. And we've talked a lot about how a lot of this stuff is just intended to be the slow burn versus the like drastic um, monster significant changes. We're not looking for that kind of stuff. We're really looking for smaller habit change so that we can hopefully maintain this stuff long term. Um, Anyone that's here have any questions or not get in touch with me about their MyFitnessPal setting it up in since I was last on a call with any of you? I don't think so. I'm looking at everyone here. I think everyone here has at least spoken to me about it if they choose to. Great. All right. The RX version of the calories in, calories out was supposed to be um, essentially the lazy macros, and you're tracking them. And the point being, the more we measure, the more we're like actually aware of what we're doing with this stuff, like at measuring and objectively analyzing our habits, the more likely we'll get the outcomes that we're kind of after. The RX version of this week, or calories in, calories out, which was week 6, was supposed to be essentially a lazy macros um, specific leaning uh, MyFitnessPal exercise. So just getting comfortable with logging our calories, logging our food, and trying to hit somewhere around 8.8 to 1 gram per pound of protein per day, and somewhere around 800 grams of fruits and vegetables per day. So that was kind of the idea last week. This week, on the other hand, is specifically making sure that we're trying to hit targets when it comes to macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And I gave a little kind of a brief little synopsis summary of um, the different macronutrients that are important to us, why they're important to us, and I loosely assigned developed a habit for that for this week would be this upcoming week would be somewhere around 40% of your calories coming from carbohydrates, 30 from fat, and 30% from protein. And those are, if you've ever done zone, that's kind of where those numbers came from. And it's where a lot of nutrition interventions, fitness interventions start when they're trying to deal with macros and calories. And then people adjust up and down from there. Most people don't really mess with the protein. They tend to adjust the calories coming from carbohydrates and fat, depending on goals and exercise needs. For example, like someone who's training super duper hard is going to need a higher percentage of their calories coming from protein, or sorry, excuse me, fat, carbohydrates. And people who are less active, less intense with their training probably don't need as much carbohydrates throughout the day. They probably need a little bit more fat just to kind of maintain a lower level of intensity. Um, That's kind of where those numbers came from anyway. The worksheet is essentially a macro breakdown. If you're using MyFitnessPal, you can do kind of a daily summary at the end of your day, and you can see where your calories are coming from. And that's kind of what the worksheet was set up to do. It's kind of giving you an opportunity to say, oh, today I got, which is often the case for me, um, way more of my calories from fat than carbohydrates. Um, Not intentional. It works out that way. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of carbs that people tend to consume. Oh my God, it's going crazy right now outside. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what the worksheet was for. Let me look at this. Oh, interesting. I forgot I structured that way, but that's kind of the idea. Um, yeah. What do you got? Questions, comments, concerns, calories in, calories out, macros, anything else?
You gonna pay for the Three Pillars app?
Oh, we'll come back to that. Let's deal with any other questions.
Okay, I'm curious.
I sometimes get bogged down and frustrated because like I'll weigh and measure and then I won't finish it all and then eat it for leftovers later and it's I think I just find it hard to keep track if I don't eat the whole amount
It's
in one sitting.
Yeah, it's super tough. Well, it's super tough in mm, as long as you've entered it. Let's just say that that's the goal that you're after. Um, you've entered it and it's in your MyFitnessPal or the other apps, RP, or I forget the name of the other one that's kind of popular. And you eat the food, it still counts. It doesn't really matter in the scheme of things what time you eat stuff at. And like you could log everything for breakfast, let's just say. It's not the end of the world if that's what ends up happening. What does become a problem is if you log something and don't eat it, or don't log something that you do eat. And in this, again, in the scheme of things, it's not the end of the world if you like are off by a few hundred calories every once in a while. But if it's a regular, that's kind of the point of this exercise, is just getting comfortable, paying attention to um, what you're consistently consuming. That's kind of the idea. And so if you're not aware of that and you're not bringing attention to it, that's where people tend to run into trouble um, when they're dealing with how much of what they're eating. So if you're eating half of it for breakfast and half of it for lunch, as long as it's logged once, it's not a big deal.
I think you run into trouble because it'll sometimes take me 3 days to finish whatever it was that I cooked.
Oh, so you're talking about kind of like portioning out stuff.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. My recommendation for that would be separate it first. So as soon as you've cooked it, separate it, um, essentially meal prep it, where you have it in different Tupperwares or something, or glass containers, whatever you're going to store your food in. So that way you know that this is exactly this amount of food, and I can use, like, let's just say I cooked. This isn't how I would do it, but just as an example, 24 ounces of chicken breast. You can basically say, okay, well, I moved that chicken breast into four different meals. So I would just do 24 ounces as the measurement, and I would do 1/4 uh, per meal when I'm logging it into MyFitnessPal.
And Nami, you can create meals in MyFitnessPal where you could like put like if you were going to meal prep something and you put carrots and mushrooms and zucchini, like I just did that this afternoon, but I didn't eat all of it because I made a bunch of portions of it. You can put it in and then whatever, like you can dupe that meal, so you don't have to put all those same combination of veggies in again. You could create a meal that has all of those in it, and then put the meal again the next day, but you just portioned it out for what you ate the next day.
And I think a really good way, what making those meals in MyFitnessPal helps you do is if you eat the same thing a lot, like I have pretty much I have a sandwich that I eat every day. I have an omelet that I eat every day. I have a protein shake with fiber and this, that, and the other every day. So I made a meal that says omelet base. And then if I add stuff to it, I just go to that meal and I add the base meal. And then if I have, I don't know, bacon with it today and ham with it tomorrow, I just add that one thing. And it makes it a little bit quicker to add or input into MyFitnessPal. And yeah, meals are really kind of the shortcut if you do something similar every day. Another plug for that, actually.
That's really helpful because I didn't know how to use that in a way that was efficient. So thanks for sharing that like base, and then you can just add extra things to it.
Yeah, and I have I've gone as far as where I shop, I have different quote unquote in parentheses bases. So like my omelet base from Albertsons, which is the grocery store down the street from me, I have a different one made for Costco because the sandwich is actually a better example. The bread that I get at Albertsons is not the same bread that I get at Costco. The cheese that I get at Albertsons is not the same cheese. And granted, they're not that dissimilar, but they're different enough that like 100 calories plus or minus could go, especially when I'm bumping up against my allotted calories per day pretty much every day. I'm not like some people that have been doing this with us that are like they have this like weight loss goal that sets already a 250 to 500 calorie deficit per day, and then they're not meeting those calories. I can't believe how they do that. I'm starving by the time I get to the end of the day, but whatever. Yeah, so the meals are a big deal. Makes things a lot easier. ¿Qué más? Nami, did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Okay. Something I would have talked about, I don't know if it would have been last week, week 6 or week 5. A lot of the weight, if you're doing things by weight, when you're working with when you're making your own food and trying to calculate stuff. Conversely, if you're going out to eat, and if you bring a food scale, for example, and you weigh chicken breast, for example, that's cooked, most of the stuff that's in MyFitnessPal is uncooked weight. So, for example, if you cook a 6-ounce chicken breast, 5-ounce chicken breast, something like that, it will tend to lose about 25, maybe 30% of its weight by volume when you cook it. So when you're inputting stuff, if you're inputting something that's cooked, make sure you enter it as a cooked value, not an uncooked value. We would have talked about that last week, but we didn't have that.
How do you know if it doesn't say? Look for one that says.
You assume that it's uncooked.
Okay.
Because that's how most packaging, like your food labels are dealt with. And MyFitnessPal deals with it.
Because even if the description was like chicken roasted, like or chicken grilled, like that assumes it's cooked, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That would be an assumed cooked value.
Okay.
If it's just chicken breast, it's an uncooked value.
Okay, that's good to know.
I search for it like the way that I made it usually, and then those things pop up like the
But if
roasted,
you put
grilled,
like
cooked.
you would, yeah, because it would have like a an adjective
Description.
associated with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that true for vegetables too?
From my understanding, yes. Because like if you think about, let's just use fruit, for example, because people don't typically cook fruit. You take an apple that's 125, 150 grams, big apple or something like that. That's an uncooked value. So my assumption is fruits and proteins tend to be count it that way. Vegetables probably as well, unless it says cooked. I didn't even think about this.
But a
Maybe
lot of vegetables, like a lot of them, well, at least the measurements I try to use are volume, not
they're
weight.
usually volume, exactly. So
Oh,
like
And that
if
and
you
like it doesn't change drastically, like the volume, unless it's like spinach or something. But yeah, I guess like sometimes mixed greens is a little hard to measure because it's like jam packed into the cup. Or does it, like, if you took a bunch of spinach and you like jammed it into a cup, or if it's like loose, I don't know,
or
that
chopped,
probably better by weight.
yeah. So the what I would say is that kind of challenge typically only presents itself specifically with vegetables. And in the case of vegetables, probably doesn't matter, right? If you
great.
eat as much of it as you possibly can, there's no harm probably unless you're having gastric issues. Which we might have people that do that might be a concern with, but for the most part, vegetables it's very difficult to do anything cause any negative effects of from eating too much vegetables, contrary to what social media wants us to believe.
Well, like, Nami, if I roast vegetables with like olive oil and stuff, that'll give you, sometimes I search it or sometimes I put in the veggie and then separately the oil, because
I
that'll
would
give
definitely
you,
do separate because cooking oils would tend to be one of the overlooked calorie inputs into our days. Like if you think about, I think a serving of olive oil is a tablespoon. If you've ever measured out a tablespoon of olive oil, it's it's not a little, but it's not also a lot. It's very simple to, and it's like 150 calories, something like that. I don't remember what it is, but it's not inconsequential amounts of calories. So that would be my recommendation. Separate the cooking oils from what you're doing. ¿Qué más? Becca, how do you cook your gummy bears? Just trying to see if she's paying attention.
I was gonna say someone has a recipe to make homemade gummy bears.
No, she just likes candy.
I'm here. I love candy.
Do you heat your gummy bears?
How do you prepare them? Oh,
Like-
she disappeared.
have you guys seen that video where like they measure one thing and it weighs 0 grams? And
Yeah.
And then they eat it, and then they put the next one on. Yeah, it's how
That's
we should all be
Becca.
doing macros, right?
I didn't mean to leave
Gummy
the
bears
meeting.
weigh nothing.
That's all I heard out of all of this is gummy bears weigh nothing. So unlimited. Great.
Awesome. I support you, Becca.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Will once tried to get me to time my candy eating to at least be like at a reasonable hour.
Like right
I once-
after a workout or
It
something.
was right after the workout. We called it car candy. And then it worked really well until it all melted during the summer in the center console.
That was his master plan the whole time, to ruin your
just
candy
to
stash.
ruin my Sprouts gummies. I know.
I once told Will that I have a really hard time with my fitness pal when I'm traveling because we eat out at all these great restaurants, and he said don't eat out, and I was like, really bad advice. Not taking it.
Yeah, I mean, in the scheme of things, again, it doesn't. You have to do the best you can. So even if you go to a place like, let's just say Chipotle, you've eaten out at Chipotle. Everyone's serving spoon size is different. So you just have to do the best you can with the measurements that MyFitnessPal gives you for Chipotle and hope that it's close enough that like, okay, you're not super precise one day, but 29 out of the other 30 days of the month, you're pretty good. it's not that big a deal. Now, if you're doing that regularly, you have to do, again, the best you can. And it's one of the reasons why I like doing this exercise. I don't, 6th and 7th week. I think we talked about it a little bit in the 5th week, is you start to learn how much, like you can look at a plate of food and say, okay, this is probably about this much protein. The hand portion control, right? It's this much protein. It's probably 1.5 cups of vegetables. It's probably half a cup or a cup of cooked rice. And yes, fine, you don't know what oils they use to cook with. You don't know how much salt is in there. You don't know if they added, I don't know, it doesn't matter because you can't know those things. So you just have to do what you can. If it's a long-term thing, like you're traveling a lot, which for Pandora, it happens quite a bit. She'll be gone for like a week at a time and a couple, maybe 2 weeks a month sometimes. It gets really hard. So trying to cook for yourself or get like on-the-go meals is probably the best bet. Like instead of having coffee and a pastry, maybe at Starbucks, you grab, you go to the grocery store and you have because there's tons of non-fat Greek yogurt, some nuts, a protein bar, piece of fruit, maybe 2 pieces of fruit. And those things are a lot easier to keep track of instead of the corner coffee shop where you got a breakfast sandwich or something like that. So
Yeah, that's what I've been doing the most is like just trying to control the meals I can. It's much easier to do that at breakfast, lunch. But then, maybe I'm with a client at dinner and it's a lot harder at, the steakhouse or whatever to do it. So I control the meals I can and it helps a lot. So,
yeah, and
yeah.
that's great. That's exactly what we're searching for. And then like if you go to a steakhouse, for example, the lazy macro suggested strategy is basically focus on trying to get the protein and the vegetables or fruit first, and then like make sure that you're getting those things, and then the rest of the meal can be whatever it happens to be. And it is what it is. No big deal. We're going to ask of Colette. Let's ask Luis a question. Luis, let's see if he's here. There he is.
So
What do you think about all this? Where are you at with this stuff?
I am reading everything that you post on WhatsApp, and I have not successfully implemented anything beyond increasing what I buy in the grocery store. So I've been purchasing more fruits, vegetables, being more conscious about how much protein I intake. So in January, I started taking like creatine and protein powder and all this stuff. As far as my weight goes, I am maintaining my weight. So not losing or gaining, but my body composition, I feel is changing with the amount of times I go to the gym. So I don't know, over like the last month, I've gone from 4 times to 5 times a week, and have noticed I'm also a lot more sore. So I have to stretch more. But yeah, as far as my Fitness Pal goes and tracking calories, I've been doing some of that. I had to purchase a food scale maybe before I even started going to CrossFit. So I don't really have any issues with that. It just, I don't know. I just want to lose body fat, I guess. And I don't know how to do that beyond just maintaining consistency with working out and what I consume.
So essentially what we're after with this stuff, a lot of the people that are on this call, and listening to them and reading them and that are in the chat have done this with me multiple times. And I don't know if you were on any of the calls that I've brought this up, but essentially we just want you to kind of find every week I've kind of tried to set this up in a way that it layers on the week before, it layers on top of. So awareness is obviously step number one, just paying attention to what you're doing, and realizing, oh, there's more to this than just eating clean, quote unquote, or eating healthy, quote unquote. What does that mean, right? We want to talk about that kind of stuff. And then we add stuff like the lazy macros, the calories, the macros, the timing, which we're going to talk about next week. I only really want, I expose and I share all of the additional increasing layers with people, not so that like I really, really don't want people to feel overwhelmed by this. I want them more to understand that there's something next that you can be doing. So if you're not ready for that stuff, that's fine. Like you find, I think I wrote in this week's little habit formation write up that like really what we're looking for is gently stretching what we're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with just like showing up to the gym, like if that's enough, now I'm not saying this specifically for you, I'm just saying in general. If showing up to the gym 3 to 4 to 5 days, like you going from 3 to 4 days a week is a stretch for you where you're at with your life, that's great. 4 to 5, great. You're ready to start weighing and measuring your food. Wow, that's pretty serious. You're ready to just make sure that you're eating at least another piece of fruit or cup of vegetables per meal. Great. Wherever you're at with that like progression, that's kind of what we're after. So that's good. And it all starts with being aware of what you're doing. So you're on the right track.
Thank you, Will. Question here for you, since you're on vacation. How are you managing what you intake when you're on vacation?
Not at all.
So you're just like not following any of these, I guess, yeah, you're not really following anything. You're just.
So jokingly, not at all. Seriously though, I've done I've done this enough times that like I have a very good sense of how much of what I'm eating, like really, really good. Every single meal, I'm being very conscious about trying to make sure I'm getting enough protein. Vegetables, fruit is not a problem, but vegetables are not super forthcoming here. Or that's maybe not the right word, but they're not as easy to get your hands on here as they are at home. So every chance I can, I grab whatever I can and consume it. Fruit is all over the place. And then whatever Melissa's grandmother makes for me, I eat because that's what you're supposed to do. and it's only a week out of my life. So
And you're consistent when you're home, so you
I'm
know you
pretty
are
damn
planning on this
consistent.
trip.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I already knew I was going to come here and it was going to be not optimal, which is fine. It doesn't really matter that much. Now, the fitness portion of my trip has actually not been as good when it normally is the opposite. I don't normally eat as well and I work out more often, but I've not been great about working out, but that's fine. Lazy macros, to answer your question, Luis.
Thanks.
I try to get as much protein as I can, as much fruits and vegetables as I can, and then whatever else happens, happens.
Gotcha.
¿Qué más?
I have
Alright.
one comment
Yeah.
of something that helped me with related to this week of the weighing of food. So I picked this was like I probably like 2 months ago or so that something I tried to like figure out something that bothered me, which was that I always make the wrong amount of pasta, and I make pasta like a lot, like the red lentil one that has like a lot of protein. But it bothered me because I'm the only one who really eats it like in my household, and so I'd have weird amounts left over. that's either wasteful or then eating too much or just like not having enough for like another meal. So weighing that uncooked takes like 2 seconds to make the correct amount for myself. And this happens like multiple times a week. So that has made my life easier. So I think that's one area that like the weighing of the food, like usually it seems like kind of a chore, but in this case, it like created like made it easier. So
Yeah,
that is one good thing.
serving sizes are a big deal, especially when it comes to snacks in particular, which is a common pitfall for people. If you get Costco sells single, Melissa loves popcorn, and we'll go to Albertsons and buy the red bag, the kettle corn
Yes.
bag of them. Well, if we'll sit there and eat the entire bag because it's super simple. It's super easy to eat and very like they're air, and the crunch is awesome, the salt is awesome, the sweet is awesome. We'll sit down and open a bag and eat it completely. Costco makes or sells a like individual packet version of those. So like it's a single serving size. It's somewhere around like 110 or something calories per bag. So much better. So setting ice cream, serving out of let's just say, let's be realistic, a gallon ice cream container, taking like setting aside a serving and then putting the rest of it away, which is, I've brought this up on calls before, is my kryptonite. Like I will eat an entire pint of ice cream, 1,200 calories later, and not, oh, wow, I didn't feel full at any time I was eating that thing. And I just ate 1,200 extra calories. No, that wasn't great. So spooning it into another bowl and putting it away is a big deal. Makes things a lot simpler, a lot more consistent. Yeah, it's really important. Snacks, pastas, carbs. Carbs are easy to overdo.
I have that problem with rice.
Rice is a big deal, yeah.
Like just one more spoon, and then you look back and you're like, oh crap, I just ate a whole extra cup of rice.
Yeah, the size of your spoon could determine, I mean, we're getting really nitty-gritty here. Like the difference between this, you know how every silverware set comes with two different sizes of spoon? Like the difference between the small spoon and the big spoon, okay, probably not that big a deal if it's a single spoonful, but if it's 5 spoonfuls, maybe. Especially if you're eating something that's super calorically dense, like ice cream, for example. So, yes, setting aside, measuring before you actually start eating, before you start cooking, even those are super good strategies to kind of make sure that you're staying on top of your stuff. Who was that? That was Becca who asked that question or made that point. Cool.
Yeah. I have to jump off, but thank you guys.
Yeah, we're just gonna wrap up with the app. Did you download it, Jenny? Did you purchase it?
No. Are you gonna purchase it?
I already bought it. I just haven't looked. Huh? It is expensive.
It's not that expensive if you divvy it up, but it's expensive as a wholesome. And you have to do the parts, and that's why I'm waiting for you to do it and tell me about it.
I did it, but I have not looked through it. I'll probably look. So I think the deal or the sale ends April 1st, which gives me this upcoming week to kind of play with it, was kind of my plan. And for those of you that don't know what,
I will ask you.
for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, there's a woman that I probably, her name is Isi Sinkowski. She does Optimize Me Nutrition. Of all of the nutrition people I've ever followed, listened to, worked with, I think she has the best handle, most realistic and best handle on establishing good habits and being really realistic with nutrition. And she cuts through a lot of bullshit and the fitfluencer nonsense, and just kind of gives you the real truth. Anyway, she came out with an app. I think it released like beta or first come, first serve, whatever it's called, on like Monday or Tuesday of this week. And she's running a special on it through April 1st. And I already got it. I just haven't had a chance to look through it, but it's essentially a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. She does something called the 3 pillars method, that this app is built on. And I steal a lot of stuff from her, to be honest. So a lot of it will be familiar. It starts kind of with, well, I don't remember the order. I think it starts with
It's the 800, I think it's the
800 gram challenge, and then it's the protein, and then it's the calories, essentially. Kind of the order that we chose to do our stuff into, which was kind of neat and validating for the way I kind of thought about it. Yeah. Should be cool. I'll let you guys know. All right, anything else before I let you go? I don't think that any of you have any reservations about texting me or asking me questions. But if you do, you shouldn't. You should ask me everything and anything whenever you need to. I tend to be okay at getting back to you. You can ask the group about things. There's a lot of people that are almost as knowledgeable about me as me about this stuff also, in that group. So yeah, reach out to each other, ask your questions, and we'll see you guys. I will see you guys, a lot of you, this week. Okay, bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.